a reckoning inside a crime scene, inside the nation's capital, which was famously criminally ransacked by Donald Trump's fans after he summoned them. This is the seat of government and democracy, which then outgoing President Trump tried to overthrow. And this is the first time the special counsel who famously indicted Donald Trump twice, Jack Smith, gave public testimony under oath about his case. And Jack Smith's headline was clear: Donald Trump belongs in prison. Donald Trump would have been convicted had, in Smith's view, the wheels of justice been allowed to move forward.
Did your investigation find that Donald Trump attempted to manufacture fraudulent slates of presidential electors in 7 states that he lost?
Yes.
Now, that is his view. A fair reporting of this also includes other views, and members of both parties, of course, were represented in the questioning. But they are questioning an individual who has high credibility, who's prosecuted people in the public corruption unit in both parties, and who brought this case with mountains of evidence. So what he said today for the first time under oath in public matters. And he said Trump is guilty of serious crimes against our democracy, and that he had the goods, the evidence, the receipts to prove it. And what is different today, and we're going to show you not only what Smith said, but a lot of the supporting material right now. I've got some very special guests standing by from the top of the DOJ. But what we're going to show you right now is both some of what Smith said, so you're caught up on the highlights. But if you watch part of this hearing today, we're going to show you more than just what he said. We're going to give it to you in the context of the overwhelming evidence. Because here's the thing. Every defendant is legally presumed innocent in our system. That includes former defendant Donald Trump. But not every case is this strong with this much evidence that occurred in real time. Trump tried to overturn the election he lost. And he was caught red-handed with volumes and volumes, piles and piles of classified documents, which he had every right to review while he was president and no right to steal when his citizen era began. And so here's where we begin tonight with Jack Smith.
President Trump engaged in criminal activity. Donald Trump suggested that one witness should be put to death.
This is a Republican, mind you, who called it a little bit embarrassing.
I felt confident in pursuing the case. I will not be intimidated.
The Republicans have called this hearing.
We had proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Be careful what you wish for.
We were ready, willing, and able to go to trial.
He's always sort of been very down the middle and just about the facts.
It was an attack on the structure of our democracy. No one should be above the law in this country.
No one should be above the law. Smith was sober to the point of dry. He was fair to the point of sometimes even possibly boring for those who watched all 5+ hours of this. And he was serious in a forum that at times was not. Indeed, Republicans were of two minds about this formidable public servant, because remember, there was a private deposition they held, and they released that kind of under the cover of darkness over the holidays. Smith was the one who said, yes, I can appear in private or public, but bring it on. Former DOJ counsel appears today amidst this enemies list, which Trump has made it clear he wants to add Smith to. These are not just named opponents or targets, but people that have already been basically subjected to the DOJ's corrupt use of subpoenas and indictments, charges, probes. Smith told the committee he does prepare for the same type of abuse by Trump now.
Do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
And Trump posted about his view that the hunter should be hunted, that he wants to return to more and more of these kind of revenge prosecutions. His current record, by the way, 0-14. Pam Bondi takes the enemies list as an order, even though in a similar forum before Congress, she once claimed there would be no enemies list.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Did he spread lies and conspiracies to his followers to make them believe that the election had been illegally rigged against him?
Yes.
They obviously were influencing a lot of people, members of the public.
Did he pressure DOJ officials to stop the certification of the election?
He did.
And I recall toward the end saying, what you're proposing is nothing less than the United States Justice Department meddling in the outcome of a presidential election.
You don't understand, Mike. You can do this. I don't want to be your friend anymore if you don't do this.
What you see there is the corroboration, including from Republican officials, from White House veterans, from people speaking under oath who did resist what Trump demanded, which was to stonewall what became his impeachment probe and later the Jan 6 investigation by Congress. And so, again, I'm trying to tell you very clearly, we cover some hearings where somebody says a bunch of stuff, and that's all we have. We cover some legal proceedings where somebody says stuff, but some of it remains under seal. And that's true sometimes for good reasons in grand jury cases or in other areas where Trump has continued to hide material against the law, like the Epstein probe. But this is not that case tonight. Jack Smith spoke under oath, under the penalty of perjury and more, in these tense times, and then referred to things that, as we're continuing to show you, happened and were corroborated by Trump's top aides and longtime Republican conservatives and Federalist Society members. Smith said it is that evidence, corroboration, and witnesses that meant he was confident he would win this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you remember the two cases, today he testified most about Jan 6, but the two cases with felonies involved would lead typically to sentencing where the defendant would end up in prison for some time. Again, every defendant legally presumed innocent. These cases didn't go to trial. But remember, it was Trump's own supporters in the cases Smith was going to bring who would have become witnesses.
Some of the most powerful witnesses were witnesses who, in fact, were fellow Republicans who had voted for Donald Trump, who had campaigned for him, and who wanted him to win the election.
I said, absolutely not.
That's not how we do things in the United States. There's no legal authority to do that.
What they were proposing, I thought was nuts.
Those are the voices of the insiders, the people who helped Trump all along the way, including on ideas that were controversial, to say the least, in the first term, but served his agenda. They just stopped at the point of ending our democracy as we know it, of trying to overthrow the incoming administration of President-elect Biden. And they failed, which is important to remember at a time like this where some feel we've gone through the looking glass in the second term and Jack Smith is being openly attacked by the sitting president, and they are willing to indict their foes, we've seen. And yet that doesn't mean that insurrections work. The last one happened, and we measured some of that today, the damage. There were police officers in that room, by the way. We'll talk about that. But it didn't work then. And if they try it again, there are good reasons to think it would not work on a repeat. Jack Smith was, as I mentioned, under these rules, not going to get into the classified documents case. That's because, unlike some of the people at the DOJ right now, this former DOJ employee closely adheres to every court order and the rule of law. So because there's a court order that limits that, he was extra careful to say he's not going to get into any of it. And I emphasize that because there are some people in government and law who would say, that's the court order, but I'm going to go up against it, or I'm going to try to get really close to the line, or I'm going to say things that aren't about what I know from the government side of that case, but in general about, for example, you could not violate a court order, but say that as a general matter, leaving classified documents all over the place that you stole is dangerous to the United States.